Progress.
I will call the February 23rd meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Improvement Program Committee to order. If we could have roll call and then do these, or do you need to do the script for the hybrid meeting first?
Either way.
Let's do roll call first to make sure we can have a meeting, and then we'll go to the script.
All right, Alguahita Oaks, Alta Mesa,
Here.
Casanova Oak Knolls,
Here.
Deer Flat, Del Monte Beach,
Here.
Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande,
Here.
Downtown,
Here.
Fisherman's Flat,
Here.
Glenwood,
Here.
Monterey Vista,
Here, Jean in Tampa, Florida.
New Monterey, Oak Grove,
Here.
Old Town,
Here.
Skyline, and Via Del Monte.
Here.
Okay, it looks like we have a quorum. Tom, you want to go ahead and read the script for hybrid meetings?
Yes, thank you. Welcome everyone to the February 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Monterey Neighborhood and Community Improvement Program. We have rules for attending the meeting tonight. Tonight is a hybrid meeting. Could be one of the last. We'll get into that during the meeting, but the in-person rules, the City of Monterey is committed to the safe attendance of its public meetings. Masks are strongly recommended for all who attend in person, regardless of vaccination status. We ask that attendees in the council chamber keep their phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference and feedback with the hybrid meeting. Zoom procedures, the City of Monterey seeks to continue to offer virtual methods for public participation in all meetings. If you aren't joining us here in person in the council chamber, there are two ways to virtually participate in this meeting. You may join the meeting directly on Zoom Gov using the Zoom app on your computer or mobile device. And you can also call into the Zoom meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer, smartphone, or telephone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. To call into the Zoom meeting, dial toll-free 833-568-8864, and then enter the meeting ID, which is 161-843-6636, and then the pound symbol. And if prompted to enter a participant ID, just press the pound symbol. Detailed instructions on using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment this evening using the Zoom app, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in by telephone, raise your hand by dialing *9, and then you must unmute yourself when called upon by dialing *6. You must do both. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. Public speakers will be called on in the order of their hands raised. Please stay within the time limit that will be established for tonight's meeting, which we will show using a countdown timer on the screen. If you are connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Tonight's meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube account, which is accessible at youtube.com/City of Monterey. And that has an approximate 10-second delay, and also on Comcast channel 25 with up to a 90-second delay. And as always, we look forward to receiving your public comments.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
And just for the public and as a reminder to the whole commission, while we have informational reports and other things tonight, the primary purpose of tonight's report, which we'll get to under item 2, is to screen the project nominations. And this is where we look at, are they a valid project from this that meets the standards of a valid project? In other words, a capital improvement on city property and so forth. It's not, or are they a duplicate? Are they under construction already? Or things of that nature. It's not to explain the project, advocate for the project, or any of those things. There's gonna be lots of meetings for those. It's really to weed out anything that is not qualify as an NCIP project. So we'll move, first item we'll move into is public comments. This is a time set aside for anyone in the public to speak to the commission on any item not on tonight's agenda, but within the purview of the NCIP. So I'll open up public comments at this time. Is there anyone in the audience?
There was no one from the public in the council chamber tonight.
Okay, and there's one member of the public attending on Zoom, but I'm not seeing any hands raised for public comments. So we will then close public comments and move on to approval of the minutes of the January 12th meeting. Hopefully everyone received them or had a chance to look at them beforehand. Does anyone have any changes or items related to the minutes they wish to see happen? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised and don't see any hands raised in the council chambers. So I'll entertain a motion for approval
So moved.
by Tom Rowley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Kurt Tipton. Any member of the public wish to address any item on the this consent agenda?
You didn't take a vote.
I know I should have taken it out to the public first, but excuse me, not the consent agenda, I mean the minutes. All those in favor of, well, we need to do a roll call vote, please.
All right. Aguido Hoag. Oh, sorry, they're not here. Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flat,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey,
Aye.
Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Via Del Monte.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The minutes are adopted. We'll now go into informational reports and staff comments. Tom, you want to introduce new NCIP members?
Yes, thank you. Since I think we went over this last month, but I wanted to just make sure, just to update everyone on members of the NCIP committee. Chinyere Agbona is the new representative, the neighborhood representative for New Monterey. Chinyere was appointed by City Council at their February 7th meeting, so just a couple weeks ago. So she is now the new representative. As you may recall, William Whipple from New Monterey resigned before last month. And then also, I think since the last meeting, Harry Nagel, who was the alternate from Del Monte Beach neighborhood, also resigned. So we had 2 resignations and 1, well, would you call that well, Chinyere moved from the alternate to the representative. That's the word. Thank you. Promotion.
Thank
So the first item, that was pretty easy. Second item, rather large one as well. The governor's emergency declaration over the COVID emergency is scheduled to expire at the end of next week. We're expecting it to be completed at the end of this month, and then it will be over on March 1st. So there are, if everyone or anyone has been watching the last several city council meetings, there's been presentations about this. So We're still unclear exactly what that means for the NCIP committee. There are two paths forward, and we have a meeting scheduled next week with the city attorney's office to discuss how it will impact the NCIP program. We'll have more information. Also, at the beginning of the meeting next month, the first item on the agenda will be the city clerk will be attending the NCIP meeting to explain the new rules and how things will move forward. But one of the bigger items is just that you should be in attendance. We'll put it that way. And so the details of how that's going to work out with the representatives and the alternates, it's different than city council where people are elected and there's no alternate. So we're going to work through that next week. So we'll have more information on that by the next meeting. Any questions on that one?
Well, I'm assuming we're going to determine how we're going to handle people with members with disabilities.
That's correct.
And things of that nature. And if we can, and I know that impacts Tammy, and I know it impacts Richard Russello.
Yes.
And also, we're going to want to know exactly how we can handle any kind of remote aspects and limitations. And I know it's a complicated mess.
We'll get through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tammy, you have a question or want to make a statement? Go ahead.
Want to know, as an alternate, and maybe you don't know this yet, but as an alternate starting next month, since the meeting, we won't have the answers until the next meeting. Do I have to be there as an alternate, or can I attend remotely and find out what the next steps are?
We will have the answers prior to the next meeting and tell you exactly what has to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, under the newer rules, you are allowed up to 2 absences. They cannot be back-to-back months or meetings. So those are the types of things, but we'll send something out to each of the committee members prior to the next meeting, just explaining everything as we know.
Okay, so the two, just so that you clarify, the 2 meetings don't mean like we've had 2 meetings already this year. It starts in March, the next, to count the 2 meetings correctly?
That is correct. Yes, like
All right,
tonight's meeting is held under the emergency proclamation that the governor has, but that will be expired by the time we meet next month.
Because Brown Act actually says calendar year, so we're also hybriding that this year then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the city council has been pretty strong about their opinion that they want the public to be able to attend remotely. So that's going to continue, but it's just really the question for the committee members, the representatives and the alternates. That's where I'm befuddled. Happens all
Well, and the challenge is the Brown Act predates the ability to do Zoom and other things by a long time. So it doesn't envision things like what we've been doing within that act.
Yes, there are provisions in the Brown Act for attending remotely, but there are requirements for that as well. So there are 2 options right now. One is to operate under the Brown Act, and one is to operate under a newer like legislative tool that's been made available, and they have different requirements. So that's what we'll be talking to the city attorney about next week.
Okay. Because I think it's critical we don't lose members because we're disenfranchising them because they're not able to attend in person.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Good. Then the next item, the informational item, cutoff projects. We met with the chair and vice chair last week, I guess. It only feels like months ago. To discuss approving the cutoff projects, number 1 and 2, and I was unable to find time to figure out how exactly that's done. So we'll work through that this month, but we'd like to approve the first cutoff project from last year, which is the Casanova Avenue Sidewalk Project. It's on the east side, Casanova Avenue between Toyon and Sequoia. And also the Villa Paraiso Tennis Court striping project. Both of those are, well, the sidewalk project was estimated about $260,000, and the tennis court striping project was estimated at about $20,000. So they total about $280,000. They were tied in the number of votes they received last year, and so they're both considered, I guess, the first cutoff project. There is plenty of funding available in the ending balance account, and we'll have a full report on that before the next meeting, at the next meeting.
So in effect, we will please make sure that whatever is going to be potentially allocate or from cutoff will have to be on the agenda to vote on. And will have to be agendized. So while there's funding for those, that looks like we'd be able to do them, we can't actually take action tonight.
Correct. Yeah. And my apologies for that. Ran out of time. And then any questions on that?
Quick question. You said there's plenty of funding in ending balance, but cutoff is actually funded by the pot of money from the prior year, not ending balance.
Which is ending balance. That's where that goes.
The same account.
But there could be other monies also in ending balance. So is that, just remind me, we're spending everything
Well,
in balance?
we spent all of ending balance when we allocated.
Okay.
So this is what is accumulated based off of projects leftovers. And if you recall, when we go to on voting night, the full amount of ending balance, full amount of contingency all goes back, all goes into the overall pot to allocate.
Right. Yeah, I just was thinking that we left that ending balance unspent until that voting night and generally didn't pull in the cutoffs except for how they related to the rest of that project set that was approved. So that's okay.
Well, we can, at our next meeting with agendized, we can decide to do it or not do it, so.
Good.
Ron, you want to move on next item?
Yes, the next one is there was a project, Reggie, actually, I'll introduce Reginald Paulding, who's our new engineering project manager, and some of you have maybe already have heard from him. He's joined us, well, just after the last meeting last month, but he's been on board for, I guess, just a little over a month, and he's been shaking things up. So we're certainly glad to have him here.
I started January 16th, 17th.
Thank you. So he has been working. One of the projects he's worked on is on Pacific Street. We approved a project last year. It was funded, had a budget of $10,000. We have since learned that this was the one over by the library exit in the parking lot over there. And the project intended to place it on an existing utility pole that's over there. But it turns out the utility pole that is there that we were envisioning placing it on is actually not sufficient to support the weight of the street light, and there's no power to it. So we're going to have to install a new wooden pole in the parking lot and get that to work. So it's going to be more expensive than the $10,000 that we envisioned last year when we brought this to council, and it'll be in the neighborhood of like $20,000 to $25,000. So that will be something else that we'll bring back next month for a vote, and we'll have better numbers on that as well.
Okay.
Just to be clear, that's the light at the front of the parking lot where there's no light available. The parking lot itself is lit, but at the front of the parking lot, it's very dark. And across that little bridge across the stream is very dark.
Mm-hmm. Then just wanted to mention also that the project conflict maps after this evening's meeting and we know which projects will be moved forward, we'll begin working on the conflict map. So just wanted to let everyone know we haven't forgotten about that yet. And then also the active projects have been updated. You can view them at any time. That it's just really providing the balance of the funding for it. But that's available at monterey.org/NCIP. And there's a link to that. You can check them at any time. That includes the informational reports and staff comments.
Okay, the next item is the NCIP spokesperson reports. I do not have a report to give. Actually, Tom and I do. I attended the Parks and Rec Commission meeting where they reviewed potential projects to submit, answered questions for them, and they ended up submitting, I think it was 8 projects, which you'll see in the list. They have not ranked them yet. They'll be doing that at a future meeting once they know what the final list of all the parks projects are. These are just ones that either they'd submitted in the past or wanted to see if they were interested in submitting as a commission. So that's all I've got, unless anyone has any questions for me. We'll move on. We'll start the meat of tonight's meeting, which is the preliminary screening of projects. We're gonna go, what we'll do is we'll go neighborhood by neighborhood. Chenier, you have a question?
Yes. So last year we had community-wide projects. I wanted to ask how that is going to be determined. And if there's any say in which ones should be moved to the community-wide.
Well, one of the things that I'm wanting to have, that I was going to be bringing up at the end and had Tom do, apparently the city attorney has ruled that all of them have to have a neighborhood designation, so we will not have any community-wide. I, for one, would like to have the city attorney come to the commission and explain her reasoning. Because after all, we are the Neighborhood and Community Improvement Commission. So why there can't be community-wide projects, I'm having a hard time understanding. But that's why you're not seeing any tonight.
And at the beginning of last year too.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
I absolutely agree, because one of the projects I put in for Highway 68 scenic signs has nothing to do with the neighborhood. It's a community project. And we just need to overrule the city attorney. She's out in left
We
field.
will
on
first
this.
hear what her reasoning is and explain things, and then, we'll see how we want to proceed at that point.
I think we just need to appeal.
But tonight, you're gonna see
Manager.
everything with the neighborhood designation, and I know in particular in downtown, that is a major concern because a whole lot of projects there that are citywide are labeled as downtown, so. Won't
Thank
do us
you.
any good arguing and inventing tonight without the person who's making the
But we
determination.
shouldn't have to waste time at our meeting discussing this. She's out to lunch on this issue.
Tom?
I mean, it's ridiculous.
City council ultimately decides, and so far right now, it's the city attorney's scenario, but let's try to work our way through it without.
Well, I'd
Going
like to
down,
know
yeah.
if Tom, if you went to bat and lost against the city attorney, do you need us to come with you to argue with the city attorney?
No, it's the way it was explained to me, this was a result of the 2019 grand jury.
And
That's BS. That's
Tom,
total
we
BS.
need to set a meeting with the city attorney, and if we need to go to the council, we need to, because that's BS. It also said we're not, then let's change our name back to the Neighborhood Improvement Program. Because if we can't have community-wide projects, why is that in our name?
I'd like to suggest, just make a motion that we appeal this directly to the city manager and have him make a decision. Because we don't need to waste time on going over something like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, I commit to you all to take it to the city manager and attorney and report back at the next meeting where we stand and what we need to do. But tonight, let's move on with our agenda because we won't get anywhere going in circles on this tonight. If everyone's okay with me doing that, I will have a answer based off of that for the next meeting. Okay,
Okay.
not seeing anyone objecting. Let's move on to tonight's screening. And it's, like I said, we will go neighborhood by neighborhood. There will be projects listed in your neighborhood that, as far as we're concerned, are citywide, but for tonight, we'll be talking to them at that point. But again, it's, are they a duplicate? Are they a valid project? Not, is it a good project, stupid project, or anything of that nature? So, Tom, you want to walk
I
us
like to
through?
say, if we think it's citywide, we should note it tonight.
No, Tom, there's no point arguing about it tonight. Okay,
The
let's
longer you
move,
delay
let's
it,
move on.
take later on.
All right, I will begin. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment here and then get my slideshow started. There we go. And then I'll reshare. Wait. Maybe. I'll tap, what is it? Thank you. And then
Well, while you're doing that, Tom, I'll just make a comment that as of this middle deadline, there are no new projects for either Aguado Oaks or Alta Mesa. So the first neighborhood we'll be looking at is Casanova Oak Knoll.
so how come I can't see it now? Wait. Oh, except for me. I can't read it. All right, can everyone see the agenda there?
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Cody. So here again is just a review of the process. This is from the Policy and Procedures Manual. Tonight is the preliminary screening for all the projects that were the new projects that were nominated this year. Again, this year we're doing a hybrid in that all the projects that were defunded, they were active NCIP projects prior to April in 2020. They were defunded and all those projects have automatically been returned to the nominated projects. They were nominated and approved before. For that reason, they're approved and automatically renominated. Tonight, we'll be reviewing the ones that were nominated this year that were not approved. The project submittal deadline was on February 10th. And we'll review these tonight and then begin the process at the end of March. So again, from the Policy and Procedures Manual, qualifying projects must be capital projects. Capital projects include streets, storm drains, sewers, sidewalks, lighting, traffic control devices, landscaping, beautification, parks, recreational areas or facilities, and other public buildings. Projects identified as qualifying projects tonight will be reviewed at the project review meetings beginning March 30th is the next meeting, going through April and then May. And then the projects will be reviewed by neighborhood in roughly 2 halves. The projects will be discussed individually in the review meetings. And then voting for the qualifying projects is scheduled this year for June 1st, Thursday night, June 1st. And the first project.
and Tom, just one thing that also includes as a valid project, studies related to a thing in order to determine what could be done. So master plans for parks, for things of that nature have also been determined to be capital projects, for lack of a better term, and are viable NCIP projects. And they need to be on city property. And if they are not on city property, such as school district, military, or so forth, there needs to be a memorandum of understanding and be able to be put in place to allow use of the facilities by residents of the city of Monterey.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks. And we'll launch right into it then. The first project, the new nomination this year is Casanova Oak Knoll neighborhood. It's for the Casanova Oak Knoll Park improvements, and there is a shade structure. Actually, let me back up one step too. If you go to your agenda packet this evening, I tried to provide a list of all the new projects that were nominated. They have like a yellowish header at the beginning of them. We separated the projects into new projects, into automatically returning projects, and then we gave a third list with all the projects together by neighborhood. So this is one that came. The note I have here is it's a duplication of one that is returning, which is the Casanova Oak Knoll number 2. It was previously approved as stated right at the beginning. So this one is a duplicate project. If we look at Casanova Oak Knoll number 2, it's for the same. It calls for one additional picnic table umbrella, rectangular shade, a playground bench, preschool bench, and a modern architectural metal fence. And I tried to get a photo this year that showed the architectural metal fence.
I don't think we need to necessarily go into a lot of detail on them. I mean, unless the rep is questioning whether or not it's a duplicate or so forth.
Okay,
Otherwise, we will be here all night going into the detail of every single one of the new projects.
good. I see that Richard has raised his hand.
Yes, Richard, go ahead.
Yes, it's a duplicate, but this year I tried to explain it better. It's just a change in the wording to make it clear. So I prefer this year's be the project that goes forward.
Okay. Then we'll eliminate the one that returned automatically. CO
Yes,
number 2. Okay.
it's the same thing, but just explain clearer, that's all.
Thank you, Richard. All right, moving on. The next one is the Mark Thomas Safe Bicycle Pedestrian Paved Separated Pathway. This was resubmitted. It's a resubmittal of a project that was nominated in 2020.
Okay,
Same reason, Rick, it was just a better description.
yeah, but this one isn't a duplicate.
I thought he
No.
said it was already submitted.
No,
Which
it's a
one?
resubmitted of the 2020.
Okay, fine, we'll
But-
go with this year.
Yeah, it is the only one that's in here, actually. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then Casanova Oak Knoll project number 5 is for a storm drain. It's for flood mitigation at the intersection of Ramona and North Fremont.
Okay, that appears to be a project.
Yeah, that's the wrong street. That's not even close.
Oh. Okay.
Or is that Grandma's Kitchen there?
It was, I thought.
Well,
But
then it's the intersection. That's where it is.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get the details. The next project is in Deer Flats. Project number 2 is for the utility boxes, for the relocation of those utility boxes you see in the photo there.
Okay. Who owns those utility boxes?
Each of the utility companies are owners of those boxes. Some of them, depending on what they are, I think there might be one that's an irrigation box that could be owned by the city. But one is probably telephone, one could be electric.
Well, let's just make sure we can do a project relocating something that's owned privately.
Yes.
So before we end up voting on that.
Okay.
And Kurt, you have your hand up?
Yeah, didn't we do this about 3 or 4 years ago? Isn't this the same project we had 3 or 4 years ago?
Yes, there was a project here to revise the intersection, to improve the intersection. There's actually now, this is an old photo from Google Street View, but there's a retaining wall behind it. And the boxes do impact the view behind it. So we'll get updated photos prior to the project. The next project review meeting next month.
Okay.
Dave, would you like to?
Yeah, I'll just quickly
Moment.
talk to that because we didn't include this part of it. We phased it when we did the original project. And then I had submitted this a couple of years ago to see if the city would actually fund the relocation, even if it was privately owned, and it was just not doable. It was too expensive. So this one I am asking for the city to maybe relocate the ones the city owns and then work with the private companies to try to encourage them to move their boxes because of the sight line issue at the
Okay,
intersection.
thank you, Dave.
Next one is also a returning project from 2020. It was the first time it was nominated. It was not approved last year. It's to just basically rotate the benches 180 degrees and then revise the fencing in that area as well.
Okay,
Next project, Del Monte Beach, project number 5 is for boardwalk replacement. The next project, Del Monte Beach, project number 6 is for the Surfway Roberts Avenue. It's to replace the existing fence along, you can see in the lower right there, the red lines indicate where the fences are. That's going into the neighborhood from Del Monte Avenue. The next project is Del Monte Beach, the boardwalk extension. And then another familiar project is the Tot Lot surface repair project that we discussed last year.
yeah, but that is, you've got down as being a duplicate of DMB 3.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm looking at it, the wording is the same, so you can get rid of the duplicate on this one and number 9.
Okay. Thank
Wait,
you.
no,
That's
sorry,
the repair.
I
Yes.
lied. Number 9 is not a duplicate. So the trick is we come back every year asking for a new pot of money because usually it gets used up from year to year. So this number 9 is the next year's pot of money, but I haven't had a confirmation yet from Parks as to whether or how much. So that's a placeholder until they tell us how they're doing.
Okay.
Okay, so DMB 09 is not a duplicate and would stay.
Yeah, 09 stays.
Okay.
It's the,
We'll call it like 2023 boardwalk repair or something to
Right.
differentiate it from the other one.
10 is the second duplicate.
Yes.
But before we leave Del Monte, I also have one other question. So in the past, we as a committee would refer things to roads, or to signs elsewhere in the area. On our list is signage around the rec trail, and it's DMB. Where to go? DMB 4. We actually were already working on that, and there wasn't any question of the city needing funds. So I'm wondering if we could just take DMB 4 and send it over to that part of the city like we used to.
I could do that. I can also tell you that the rec trail in that area is being designed to be
Well,
realigned.
And that is the second question is that we know this year, it's supposed to break ground this year.
Yes.
That whole thing's being torn apart and it wouldn't be appropriate for this project to proceed or be funded.
Correct.
So I was actually going to just refer it over to them and take it off the list and let it be handled that way,
Okay.
if that's okay.
That was 04. So that's
Yeah.
a returning one.
It's a returning one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Del Monte Grove.
The playground improvements, and this is one for outdoor musical instruments. This one is new this year.
Right. That would be a project.
Then Del Monte Grove project number 3 is the Casanova Avenue sidewalk. This is one that we are proposing to fund from the cutoff list of last year. This is the same project.
So if it's funded from the cutoff, it would then drop off this year's plan.
Right.
Okay,
Then Del Monte Grove number 4 is Casanova Avenue streetlight. They're looking for another street light on this block. It's the same block where the sidewalk is going.
Oh, and just anyone who's any member who's in the council chambers, I can't see you sit while we're doing the thing. So just like Jamie did, just chime in.
Jump. Yeah. And I've got my head down too, so sorry for that. Del Monte Grove project number 5 and 6 were duplicate projects. But they're both the same project, the same wording even, and it's to install the decomposed granite pathway along Virgin Avenue there. So we can delete.
Eliminate 6, but we keep 5.
Yep. And we've got downtown project number 10 for the dune restoration and fence repair.
Where exactly is this?
We'll ask
It-
Kurt.
Yeah, it's the dune and the fence right in front of Window by the Bay. That whole thing has
Okay.
been, with the winter storms, have been, it's totally gone away.
I was just trying to think of what fencing along the beach was in downtown, but okay.
That's it. There was cabling up and there was signs up that said dune restoration and all that.
Okay.
Quick comment. Rick,
Go ahead, Tom.
I talked to Brian Nelson, the harbor master, and who runs, getting all the permits for the reconstruction. And the beaches are not scheduled to be replenished until next year. So what we're looking at is going to be with all the posts sticking up.
Well, at the speed we're getting NCAP projects done, that works about right.
But there is a separate pot of funds that the city has. They do that. But one good storm wipes out everything,
Mhm.
fortunately.
It's still a valid project, though whether we choose to fund it, it's a different matter.
The next project is for the El Estero Park Center facility improvements.
Those would be valid projects.
Yeah, actually, all the downtown ones are.
And number 12.
Richard, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, yes, Tom, I have a question about existing city plans on ocean rising and tsunami risk.
Yes.
That youth center is in that zone. I've seen the maps. Are they considering that, asking us to remodel it?
We'll have to ask them.
Yeah, the tsunami risk is quite clear. We have faults in the bay. It only gives us minutes warning if something like that happens. So I worry about investing a lot of money in a building, which the council's already talked about, not in increasing usage in this area.
Okay, well, we'll get the questions asked and hopefully answered before we get to voting on this. But it's a valid project, however, for tonight.
Thank you. And then the next project is project number 12, also at El Estero Park. It's for a playground equipment upgrade.
That's a valid project.
Project number 13 is for the El Estero Park course improvements.
A valid project because those are fixed items.
Project number 14 is for the barbecue shade area, also at El Estero Park.
Valid project.
And then project number 15 is for the Jack's Park artificial turf on the infield of this Jack's Park.
So it's a resubmittal of a valid project.
Yep. Another resubmittal actually is for the Solicito Paul Park lighting improvement projects.
It's valid.
And then we have one for Dennis the Menace video surveillance equipment, which is new this year.
What, you mean we don't want to have Dennis be stolen again?
Getting him quicker, right?
Yeah, this would be for the equipment, but not for monitoring.
Correct. Just the
Yep.
installation.
Then it's a valid project.
Then project number 18, also downtown at the Sports Center, is for a new bike rack upgrade.
Okay, that would be valid.
And then moving on to well, I put it in the Fisherman's Flats neighborhood. It's to install scenic route 68 highway signs along there.
Isn't this a state highway?
Yes, it is.
So can we install signage on the state highway?
This is to replace the one, the first sign that was knocked down by an accident. There was a sign at this location. It's been about 5 years. They still haven't
But
put.
it's not a city sign. It's a
No, it's
state
just like the
sign.
signs over the freeway. The city wound up buying them before Caltrans put them in.
True. I think we just need to note that Caltrans would have to sign off on it.
But the one location was a location where there was a sign previously. Yeah.
Okay,
I've mentioned this before at city council meetings. It falls on deaf ears.
it would be a valid project. We just will have to have a go ahead from Caltrans prior to voting night, or some kind of indication from them that it's actually doable.
Yeah, I asked for a total of 3 signs because there's room all the way going out to York Road for additional scenic signs. That basically it was, when it was originally designated highway, it was really open road with no stop signs, no nothing. But we've got several stop signs before you get to York Road.
It's a valid project. We'll get a chance to dive into it and go into the nuts and bolts on 2 different meetings coming up.
All right, then moving on to the Monterey Vista neighborhood is the citywide forest management project.
The citywide forest management in Monterey Vista. Okay.
Yeah. And I just had a note also, this one is similar. There's an active NCIP project number 2305. But this is another one, as Jamie mentioned earlier, that gets refunded every year to keep the balance. The work moving on.
So is this a new funds for it, or?
Tom,
Understanding. Yes.
Jeannie? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't put my hand up for some reason.
Okay.
But the idea of this project is really citywide maintenance and tending, maintenance is a good word, of the trees, along with the removal of the downed fuel accumulation. So it would be a large amount of money to address the fire hazards that increase year by year in the community. And it's also an attempt to have one very large project that could get completed quickly and efficiently, rather than the continuing delays of other projects that lie fallow year after year and take so long to complete. The example being, we only completed 7 projects last year.
Okay, so it's a new pot of funding. We'll find out as we get into reviewing it, the amount. It's a valid project. So we can, let's move on. Stays on here, so it's not a duplicate.
Correct.
Yep, okay. MV10.
MV10 is for proposed stop signs on Via Gayuba at Colton Drive.
Okay, that would be a valid project, provided the traffic review finds its awarded location for it.
Yes. Project 11 is Via Paraiso Park Playground Equipment Improvements.
That would be a valid project.
And then here's one we mentioned earlier, again, the Via Prizzo Park, the pickleball court improvements. This one is a little bit different than last year's project that's on the cutoff list. Is about restriping one of the tennis courts to make it 2 pickleball courts. This one also included a short fence between them, so it's slightly different than the one that's on the list.
So if we end up funding from the cutoff project, that piece of it would be pulled out.
Correct.
Richard, I take it that was your question?
You did it for me.
Okay. So yeah, it would be a valid project, but might need to be modified.
Project number 13 is Herman at El Caminito for pedestrian improvements. There was a crosswalk requested at this location.
Okay, if it's a crosswalk and it's warranted, doesn't the city just go out and paint them?
In cases where it's obvious that they can, yes.
So I would just, to me, it would be a valid project, but we should look at, first of all, we'll know if it's warranted and if it can just be done by city staff without having to be a formal project.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need to know that tonight.
And then project number 14 is for the Veterans Park, Quarry Park walking path. It's 2 improvements of the trail there.
That seems to be a project.
Project New Monterey. This is the first new Monterey project. It's for restoring the bridge. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Richard.
Oh, I just wanted to mention the crosswalk. If we put in a crosswalk, it has to be ADA. So it's going to be more money than paint brick.
Yeah, well, we don't know what it's going to be yet, so we
Correct.
just need to see.
Yeah. And then moving in,
You're right. It would be more if it needed the ADA.
into New Monterey. This is for the Anise Bridge restoration.
That's a valid project.
Yep. And didn't we have a previous project for Aeneas? Was that one of the ones that got defunded or what?
No, there is.
Or was it the study?
I'm sorry.
There was a previous project for the study, which I believe was completed. So this is
Okay,
for
great.
the,
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering then. Thank you, Chinya.
And then New Monterey project number 17 is for a mural of Monterey Bay on the side of the building at 585 Cannery Row.
and that's a valid project.
Tom, on that 585 Cannery Row, we would have to have the approval of the property owner to do it though, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
My understanding at this point, yes.
okay.
The next project is Taylor Street sidewalk improvements. This one actually have it noted as a duplicate of project number New Monterey 12, which was automatically returned. This was a previous project that was defunded in 2020.
Yeah, so this is a duplicate, so we'll remove this one.
Thank you. And the Hilltop Park Center improvements. This one also I have is listed as a duplicate of New Monterey project number 6 that was returned automatically.
Yes, so this is also a duplicate.
Thank you. The next project is at Schulte Park for site design and renovation. And this project we discussed last year was not voted high enough, but to rework the outdoor areas on the lower part of that site, make it more useful.
So this would be a valid project.
And then project number 21 is for the rec trail study. This was nominated in 2020 as well.
I believe that is the valid project.
And I,
Richard, you have your hand up?
Yes, has this project come before us several times and the council ruled on it? I need clarification if this project is going against, I'm not sure if it was Parks, Planning Commission, or City Council, but I just recall this project is a duplicate. Can you check on that, Tom?
yes, I will check on that. This was a project that we did discuss last year, and it was determined to be a valid project last year. This was nominated, I think, by the Parks, well, one of the commissioners on the Parks and Rec Committee, and to study the recreation trail and to see how or where improvements could be
I
made.
just recall we've done this in the past. We actually did the study.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, but
Yeah, if you could check that out, please.
yes.
I think it would be more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it may not have had, I think this has a safety focus to it. Like lane control, that maybe that old one didn't.
No, that's the next project.
Yeah. And we'll
22, which is restriping.
yes. And this is to restripe and separate pedestrian and wheeled vehicles.
And we've seen this one as well, and this is one of the ones that had a lot of controversy, Richard, more so than the overall study.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
But I would say it's valid, and it's the kind of thing that NIP sometimes chooses to do, even when the city isn't taking the lead.
And actually, my understanding from the discussions at Parks and Rec, part of the reason we have NN 21 is because of NN 22.
Mm.
That rather than have piecemeal things coming from general public to actually take and look at a study of what, if anything, could be done, in a more formal sense. But they're both valid projects.
So then the neighborhood rep might want to talk with the submitter of this one to see if they would be
I can certainly do that.
He's very adamant about his ideas. If it's the submitter, I think it is.
Yes. If I could add, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recall that the Parks and Recreation actually took a vote on this. So I just like to know the history before we stumble over each other again.
We will, because this will be going in front of Parks and Rec prior to our voting nights, so.
Yeah, I think that was the comment, was to try to get some input from Parks and Rec about
Yeah.
whether it's even feasible. So that'd be helpful.
Good, thank you. We'll go on to project number 23, which is the rec trail, the restoration of the decomposed granite areas. And this one I had as it being a duplicate of project number 9.
So this is not technically a duplicate. Project number 9 specifies replacing it with colored concrete, where this is just filling in the DG.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's keep it as a project.
Yes, separate project.
Yep.
Okay. Then project number 24 is one. This one was an approved project. It was defunded in 2020. Last year it was pulled from consideration prior to voting. It didn't automatically return, but it was an approved project last year. This is for purchase of the open space. There's one vacant lot across from the Hilltop Park Center up there.
Yeah, so
So
this would
it's
be,
to go ahead and try to buy it again.
so my understanding is it's just a legal transfer. That it's I guess whoever owns it was willing to transfer it, but also wanted assistance with removing trees and things like that.
Okay.
So Tom, if we could get some more clarification on it prior to, as we're going through this process, let's keep it on for now.
Got it. Thank you. Project number 25 is for Irving. It's at 2360 Irving Avenue. Just improvements to the sidewalk area.
And that should be a valid project.
Yes, we just need to make sure that the homeowners need to know that they become responsible for any work that's done to maintain it moving forward.
Okay.
That's usually a surprise to a lot of people, but that's the city policy.
Yes. Project number 26 is for Seagull Abatement Program.
So, yeah, we didn't feel like this was a valid project.
What's actually being proposed that would be a permanently installed capital improvement? Tom, anything?
No.
I
That's
can't,
fine.
what I understand from reading it, and I'm trying to read it quickly right now, but I think it was, I know they mentioned Pacific Grove and Del Monte Shopping Center, and I know they have someone come out with a falcon and they just walk around and
Well, that wouldn't be a valid project, because that's an ongoing service, not a capital improvement. So to me, this is not a valid project. As
agree.
much as it may be desirable to get rid of the seagulls.
Well, the second paragraph talks about stopping gulls nesting. So
Yeah, but we need to have a little bit more than. And can we legally stop gulls nesting?
yeah, you're right. Never mind. It looks like I got it. It's about stopping nesting. It
I
won't
mean,
work.
it's one thing if they're going to have spikes put on the roofs of every single house in New Monterey to keep them, I mean. It's a problem. I don't discount that, but it's not in our purview to, I don't think to be dealing with it.
okay. Project number 27. I also have as it being a duplicate of project number 13 in New Monterey. It's for widening 500 block of Oak Street.
Yeah, so this would be a duplicate.
Okay. And then project number 28 is it's a new project for public murals and a public art festival.
So this didn't sound like a capital project, but I was kind of confused about what was being proposed.
The murals could be a project, but
Okay.
a festival, no.
Okay.
Okay. The next project is in Old Town. This is called Common Green Improvement. That's for a walking trail that's on Cedar Street between West Franklin and Roosevelt to improve it.
Okay, that's actually, I think the NIP project bought that site, I think. Or created that originally, way back.
Hmm.
But that would be a valid project.
And then the next project is out at Ryan Ranch for an 8-court pickleball complex located at Ryan Ranch or other suitable site, it says.
So I'm assuming this would be city-owned Ryan Ranch.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Or that's my understanding as well.
That's what it would need to be for it to be a valid project, so,
Rick,
Yeah.
going back,
yeah.
not project number 45, they stuck in adding a basketball court in Fisherman's Flats. It's not in any park and rec master plan. So before they can propose something like that, it's got to be in the master plan. So
What project are you talking about, Tom?
project number 45, you whiz by it. At the end, they're proposing a basketball court
What neighborhood?
in Fisherman's Flats, and it's not in the park and rec master plan. So, this is something that's suggested that's not,
Doesn't mean we can't go ahead and fund it, but yes,
Yeah, we've been flexible on that. We don't,
that's part of what the determination becomes. It's not one of the new projects, Tom. And so if it was on from last year, we previously ruled it's a valid project. Whether or not it makes sense, whether or not it's got support of the Parks and Rec, we will know as we get into voting, but it's still a valid project.
yeah, but it's never, well, and it's never been brought up before in a neighborhood. So anyway, just,
Yeah, that's down in the projects from previous, so it's not one of the new ones.
So that one, we said, this is the one that talked about the murals and then the art festival. And there's a piece at the bottom too that talks about an idea that may not be part of the proposal. So we'll have to get more information on.
Okay.
Uh,
So the pickleball courts would be a valid project.
Yes.
So Skyline 09.
Skyline 09 is to replace that white wooden fence there up at the top of Mar Vista, right below Skyline Drive.
Who owns that fence?
It is a city maintained fence, so I believe.
Okay,
yeah,
and,
as well.
and it's a valid project.
Project number 10 up at Skyline is for a parking turnout, which would be just in the area where the photo is there to widen and provide one parking stall for emergency vehicles. Is what they're requesting.
It would be a valid project.
And then down in Villa Del Monte, Ferrani Park playground area, picnic tables and bench installation in the area to the right of the fence there near the playground.
That would be a valid project.
And then project number 6 is Del Robles Avenue for solar street lights along the area. It's actually maybe not the entire section that's shown dashed here, but just the part that's parallel to the freeway, to Highway 1 there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid project. Now, we need to have sign up from those who are nearby those that they're fine with it. Dwayne, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just supporting Tom's mention that it is just the part that's parallel to the freeway. And yes, we'd have to, get the nod from the property owners in that area.
Okay.
Then project number 7 there is for a neighborhood tower to be installed in a bioretention area that was constructed 2, maybe 3 years ago.
I'm assuming you mean a neighborhood entry sign
Yes, it's like
versus a tower.
it's
It looks like a tower. I know what you mean, but
yes.
that sounds like we're building a tower
Yes.
versus a sign that looks like a tower.
It's a short tower, I believe.
Okay.
We'll get more details on it.
No, I remember. I personally remember the design that we'd seen before, so it just threw me when we said tower.
Yeah. And then
Obelisk.
oh,
Richard, you have your hand up?
Yeah, back at the streetlights, the solar streetlights, maybe the presenter would consider an alternate of power because it would take a tremendous battery to get a streetlight to burn through the night. And the cost will be astronomical. Just thought it might be a good option.
Okay. And then VDM 08.
08 is the last new nominated project this year is for to look at the Palo Verde Avenue and Helvick Avenue, the traffic circle that's there, to look at to have a traffic study done of that area again. If you go in here, I've done this myself, you drive in off of Del Monte and you can't go anywhere because it's one way coming out. So it's really a dead end.
They did.
I do believe that project came about because of a previous neighborhood traffic study
Mhm.
that created that scenario.
Yes, that's my understanding as well.
Gene, you had your hand up first and then Dwayne.
The attachments that I'm looking at, Rick, do not include the submission forms. So I can't tell who the submitters are, and that's always of interest to me. Will we have access to that?
Yes.
We would be getting that in advance to the next series of meetings.
Great, thanks.
I believe that they're going to try to do, instead of publishing a book, we're looking at doing it electronically. And then on request, do a whole printed book. Because they're
Thank you.
very expensive. But yes, everyone will have that info.
Yes, prior to the next meeting, we were hoping to weed out as many, well, just
Didn't want to duplicate work that will do work on projects that would be going away, so.
thank you, Rick.
Sensible.
Save me.
Dwayne,
Can I also jump in and say an Excel version of the trimmed list would be extremely helpful?
Okay. Dwayne,
Yes, no, the design that came out of the previous study would work if there was any enforcement, is what the neighbors say. And without it, it's crazy. And they said they really noticed things change when the building was built for Starbucks and Montage Health and stuff. That really added to it.
okay, it's a valid project though, Chenier.
Just in terms of reducing the number of projects that don't really need to be considered. I know there are a couple on New Monterey that aren't, that are going to be removed. Should I wait for the next meeting for that, or?
You mean down in the section that comes up next? If my next thing I was gonna bring up is, while all the ones that were previously approved and defunded and have come back were deemed valid, if there's any of those that anyone has any reason to want to be removing, this would be the time to bring it up. So yes, Janelle, go ahead.
Okay, so New Monterey 404, the Belden Drake open space. That lot is no longer available, so we can remove that.
Okay,
And then New Monterey 03. It looks like that's not viable after 9/11, so that could be removed too.
okay.
And those are the only two.
And we'd actually even done the consensus on that one on those. So those two, Tom, we can take off the list.
Thank you.
And Gene, are you still have your hand up from before, or do you have a new thing to?
Sorry, that was from before.
I had a feeling, but just in case, I wanted to make sure. Does anyone have any of the other projects that were the previously approved defunded that we're seeing on the list for any reason that should no longer be there?
None for downtown.
Richard, you have your hand up?
The COK 2, that's the duplicate, that's erased, right?
Yes, because you kept the other one.
Right,
Correct.
thank you, that's all.
Anyone else have any? Okay, seeing none, let's go on to the closest agenda item and go on to the next item on the agenda, which is, what is it? I gotta go back up there.
Committee member comments.
Committee member comments. Anyone who wishes to make any comments right now? Okay, I see all the hands ready to go up. I can't see the council chamber, so I'll start with those who are online. So it'd be Kurt followed by Dwayne.
Okay, so just going back with the issue of community ride versus neighborhood, it would be a good idea, Rick, if you could say that it's the consensus of the committee that we use community-wide rather than neighborhood specific for those projects that truly are community.
I will also bring up that we have tried to agendize and get set actual standards that would be followed to determine that. That way it takes any politics out of it or anything else, which would have been the only reason for the grand jury to be bringing it up.
Okay, and the only other thing is, thank you for another short meeting.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you all for sticking to the items on the agenda and what it's about to. That's what makes it shorter. Dwayne?
Yes, I drive through Skyline often and I see a lot of deadfall. And it just kind of breaks my heart that I don't know if it would be illegal or against policy or something like that. Why isn't the public allowed to come in and take some of that firewood away?
Tom, let's ask Parks Department about that question.
Yes, we can get an answer for you. on that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Bella. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was included in the roll call. She didn't call the alternates' names, and I just wanted to make sure that I was here.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are there anyone in the council? Go ahead. Lee.
Yeah,
The camera focused on you, so I could tell you had your hand up.
Yes.
Possible.
You need to turn your mic on though.
Oh, Mike.
Next time we have an agenda with attachments, there's so much pertinent information, important information that will affect how we vote and how we look at a project. But when you have to use a magnifying glass to even read it, something's lost in the translation. May we please have some larger printed information to be able to read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Anyone else in the conference room who?
yeah, Rick.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, just I had the pleasure of meeting Reginald, the new coordinator, project engineer. And one of the things that's unique about the Flats and Foothills area, and this goes to Whitney, is you've got county areas right next to city areas, and you can't tell as you're driving around where the county starts and the city begins or ends. And one of the things that came up, and Reggie was able to come out. We spent about an hour, and I got a chance to meet him, and he looks like he's really going to be on top of it and really help you guys get rolling on this stuff. And so that was a pleasure. But one of the things that came up at the city council meeting on Tuesday is the planning staff consultant that they've hired to work on the housing plan. And they're trying to come up with areas to locate new housing. One of the things that you don't hear much about is the Highway 68 area plan. In fact, when the city planning staff lists plans, they leave it off the list. And this was voted by the citizens of Monterey in, I believe, 1983 or 1984. And it's a standing plan, and it talks about the county areas that are next to city areas as you go out the Salinas Highway corridor. At that time, it was envisioned the scope of Monterey was planned to go all the way to Laurellis Grade. But we know what happened with level of service being non-existent on Salinas Highway. Basically what we see is what we've got right now, which is a hodgepodge of areas of county area next to city areas. A big example is along Jocelyn Canyon Road. I suggested to the consultant, and this was not something that he'd heard of, that they need to look at, as envisioned in that plan adopted by the city of Monterey voters, annexing land to the city to have land to expand for these 3,654 units of housing, which we don't have the room in the existing boundaries of Monterey to build. So this is something I've asked that they have the consultant come to the meeting of the president's meeting on the 16th of March, and that I've invited them to our annual meeting, which is April 3rd. They've got about 2.5 months to come up with a draft plan. One of the things they're planning to send high school surveyors around door to door, which is the most nutty thing that I've ever, one of the nuttier things that I've heard. I won't say it's the most nutty thing I've heard, but anyway, they are on a very short time frame, and they're supposed to have something approved by the state and by the city by the end of this year, which has got delays of 30 days from a draft plan and 90 days for the state HCD to approve the housing. And it's supposed to be due by the end of December. So this is a very rigid timescale, and all the neighborhoods have to be prepared to help get the word out and get input, because I think they're spending a lot of time on listening sessions, people from out of area that don't understand Monterey, don't understand the water problems. And they're just a lot of wheel spinning. So this is my concern. And I really think all the neighborhoods have to be aware of what's going on. This is very important. This affects all the housing development for the next 8 years, and the RENA allotment that we've been assigned of 3,654 units, which is like 20% of the number of people that live in Monterey right now. The other thing is, they say we have 41,000 jobs. ARC just voted to take another office building on Garden Road at 2560 and convert it to housing from jobs. We're going in the wrong direction on the jobs housing balance. We're losing jobs for residential. And I don't think the city staff is aware of what they're doing, or if they are, and the city council is so pushing for housing, they've forgotten that you got to have a job before you can afford housing. So anyway, that's just a comment and a little editorializing, but this is going to come down, and this is all while our NIP process is ongoing, in which a lot of us will be involved in that. So this is going to be very tough on the time constraints on the city staff and Kim Cole, the Community Development Director. And I don't know whether Tom and Cody and you guys, how you're going to be impacted on this, but there's a lot of area in the Flats and Foothills area that is county area that butts up. And right now we've always, never considered projects there. So anyway, that's a quick comment. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Tom. Kurt, is your hand still up from before?
Sorry.
Likewise, Dwayne? Okay. Anyone else in council chambers? I'll make one comment. I think you all know where I stand on community-wide versus others, so I will be going to bat for it. Tom, I'd like to have you set up a meeting with myself and probably Jean, city attorney and city manager to discuss this further and get additional clarification and provide additional information to them and perspective. And you might also mention to them, I was one of the people that testified in front of the grand jury. So, I think they're overreacting in this aspect. And I think there's a way to handle it that meets our needs and meets the city's needs in addressing grand jury comments. So if you could set that meeting up, that would be great.
Will do.
Okay, seeing no other comments, our next meeting is March 30th. So we are adjourned.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.